Borda, welcome to Expansive. I am Tomlu, and this is what many consider to be the greatest of the three Bioshocks, and this really has become a bit of a cult classic. Bioshock 2 puts you in charge of a big daddy rather than the main character Jack for the first game, and in the third game you have a different character again. This is a big daddy, and the level design of this, as a result, really feels different, and the dynamic of the game is different because you're essentially trudging through Rapture as one of its actual sole inhabitants, not as a visitor. So this is a really fascinating game, and it also gives you more of an insight into Little Sisters, their history, and that relationship between the big daddies and Little Sisters. It's a really interesting, fascinating exploration of narrative in the Bioshock universe and a logical progression point from the original game. But is it actually the best, and is it still any good? Let's find out. So this game takes place 8 years after the original Bioshock, and as I mentioned, you're playing a big daddy. The big daddy known as Subject Delta, which is actually the original template from all other big daddies. And you can immediately see the difference there. You've got the big drill on your right arm there. And what's interesting is that you're essentially trying to find your original little sister, the one you were protecting, as Subject Delta. And the game kind of influences in different ways because you have a different ending depending on what you did throughout the game, whether or not you chose to harvest Little Sisters or whether or not you decided you were going to actually preserve them. And so as a result of that, you get to see things from a different perspective either way, whichever way you play the game. This was also developed by 2K Marin, so it was a different development studio, and while Ken Levine was still involved with the project, he had an overseer role, so he wasn't directly involved with it as such. This is also the first time that we had multiplayer in the franchise, and the last time. And essentially, yeah, it did feel very different, but as a result, as many people have said, this actually did feel like the best Bioshock game. But it did seem to lack the cleverness of the first game, and also there's some notable twists in the first, yeah, you can see there. Look what I did there. I can basically now drill through my enemies, which is already it's a different dynamic. You can also absorb a bit more damage than before. And as you can see there, I'm getting flashbacks to my little sister who I've been looking to protect. I think one of the other big things about Bioshock 2 is that it actually featured the first proper DLC for the game, Minerva's Den, but it was actually considered to be one of the best DLCs of all time. So the interesting thing about the multiplayer aspect is that's actually set prior to Bioshock 1, whereas the actual narrative of Bioshock 2 is set 8 years after. But it's interesting that the actual multiplayer aspect was very unique. Because a lot of people, when it first got announced, wondered how you could actually have Bioshock with a multiplayer component. But it was unique in the sense that it actually had a narrative point and a purpose to it. So there are new abilities as well. So you've got a telekinesis, or you can actually invoke fire. There's also these different abilities in the game where you can actually use melee attacks now, where you couldn't before.
Weeks. I don't need to.
You sort of have to You can also use the weapons and the actual plasmids together very quickly, so you can actually freeze an enemy and then shatter them with the spear gun. And you also collect all the usual things as well, like you collect ammo and money and Eve. And also you just go through the game with various different...
One day, my heirlooms, leave them at least!
You've also got little security hacking mini-games which are activated for the game as well. These were slightly changed in Bioshock 2. And it's just a general different feel to the game, even though it's very, very similar. But obviously the way you can speak to the Little Sisters and interact with them and actually usher them towards the little portals which you've seen in... Everything has changed and it's fallen to ruin, so you're not only getting to see more of Rapture than ever before through travelling outside, but you're also getting to see a very run-down Rapture. So everything is now, it's kind of like there's whole new people in charge, and who's taking advantage of the situation more than anyone else, and it's just about learning about Rapture in an entirely new way. So you can see you get a little hacking mini game as well, as I mentioned earlier, and you have to basically stop it in the middle on there to hack the door. So Bioshock 2 for me, the level design, the new mechanics, the way, the kind of the storyline. I like the ability of having to chase another creature to fight it with your little sisters, and kind of like the way you can evolve the story that way. You learn more about Rapture, you learn more about what's happened since you last visited, the impact that you actually had in Bioshock 1. It kind of gave the whole situation more gravity, and it kind of made everything different. Rather than actually following the same character again and again, the most important thing really was discovering more about Rapture. I think Bioshock 2 will benefit the most from this collection because it's the game a lot of people kind of were on the fence about. They never actually got around to playing. They always never thought it wasn't as good as the original, it wasn't as good as they thought, or yeah, it got them. Thank you very much for checking it out. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. We'll see you for the info video.